TV. This is the Wednesday show. I'm Andrew Lewin, founder of SpeakUpForBlue.com, a website dedicated to conserving the ocean conservation movement through awareness, education, and action. Now, our first story brings us to the sunny state of Florida, where the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission are actually considering to rule whether the recreational anglers will be able to keep gag grouper catches, gag grouper is a type of fish, in state waters while federal waters remain closed for the same species. Now, the recreational anglers brought forth this argument to the commission so that to open up this gag grouper in state waters while the federal waters remain closed for the species, so that it will help the local economy by creating jobs and keeping tourism alive during this time of year. Now, the argument doesn't really make sense to me because there's a federal closure in place and the state is closed for a reason. And the closure for fish is to actually ensure that the pressure on fishing is relieved for that fish for that particular time of year. Now, the gag grouper is actually considered vulnerable by the IUCN red list. Now, it's not threatened, but it's vulnerable. It's still not in a good position. So, increasing the fishing on gag grouper not only loses protection of the species during the federal closures, but will eventually cause the fish to become threatened and possibly extinct at a particular time. Especially for the fact that the major pressure on gag grouper is it looks very close to another closely related species, the black grouper, which is highly sought in commercial and recreational fishing. And another argument on that is, it's really the obvious argument is fish don't really recognize political boundaries. For example, a fish is not going to not go into state waters because there's a boundary between federal and state waters at the 9 nautical mile mark. Now, I probably should have said this at the beginning, but the state waters go from shore to out to 9 nautical miles, and the federal waters start at after the 9 nautical mile mark and out to the deep ocean. Now, fish they don't understand that there's a political boundary. They don't care. They go to a particular place because it either offers food, it offers protection from predators, or it's a good place to spawn. It's a place to attract other fish to spawn and reproduce. It's not going to not go into a certain area because it's state water and it's open to fishing. It doesn't recognize that. So opening state waters during a federal closure is absolutely probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I can't even believe I'm making a post about this because it should be obvious, but apparently it's not. So I have to say this post, and I really want you guys, the listeners out there, to share this on social media, pass it around, because people have to know that this stupid stuff goes on all the time. And we need a voice to go on in this. So I'm going to try and get a link to an email to somebody on the commission to voice your opinion on this. Let's stop this pressure on the gag grouper. There's a reason why it's protected in the first place, because it's vulnerable, and we just can't afford to lose another species due to our stupid ways. Now, there are other ways to increase the economy. Let's look at those ways before we open it up and just fish this fish till it's gone. So that's our first story of the day. Our second story actually brings us to Vancouver, BC, and it relates to a post that Speak Up for Blue had on last week, written by Roy Mulder, who's not only a Speak Up for Blue Ocean leader, but he's also the president of the Marine Life Sanctuary Society located in Vancouver, BC. And the article is pertaining to Parks Canada, which is the federal body of the Canadian government that deals with land, freshwater, and marine parks in Canada. We're holding workshops to discuss their plans and vision for the next 15 years. And Roy attended the meetings and the workshops to represent the environment portion, especially the marine environment portion. And what he noticed was there was really a lack of two groups. Other user groups were invited. They were representatives from First Nation groups, representatives from other users such as recreational and commercial fisheries, kayakers, and scuba divers were invited, but there weren't many scuba divers apparently. But really, two groups that weren't there were people representing the marine environment, and just a demographic that was absent was the younger generation, whether it be high schoolers or between 20 and 45. What the average age, he was saying, was probably above 50, between 50 and 60. Now, that really bothers me, especially that young person aspect. Now, I consider myself young. I'm 33. I'm not that young, but I still consider myself younger than a 50-year-old, obviously. And to be honest, in the next 15 years, I'm going to be 48 after 15 years, which scares the hell out of me just saying it right now. But that's where I'm going to be, and that's a big portion of life where I'm in charge, or I inherit the stewardship of my Canadian oceans and the Great Lakes. And I want to make sure that I leave my kids with healthy oceans. So I want to make sure I have a say. Now, of course, I didn't get to have a say. I didn't attend the workshops because, well, for one, I live near Toronto, which is central Canada. I can't afford to go out to BC all the time. And two, I didn't even hear about it. I didn't even know about these things. I'm actually well connected in Canada with all these workshops that are going on, and I didn't even hear about it. So it really concerns me that a young group wasn't there, and especially in Vancouver or BC, because they tend to be a little more environmentally conscious, because they use the outdoors more. They have mountains, they have oceans, they have fresh waters, they have big forests, great big forests, and a lot of wildlife, and they tend to just engage more in that type of situation, that type of leisurely sport. But I mean, there's really two sides to the story. One, the younger generation did not go there, and they were not represented properly, and they need to, because they will inherit this over the next 15 years. The other thing is, how did Parks Canada market this workshop? How did they announce this workshop? Was it just to a specific leaders of specific societies? Did they, to engage younger people? You would think that, two ways that right off the top of my head that I would think is engage people at local universities, graduate students and undergraduate students that are involved in marine biology or marine planning, ocean planning, University of Victoria, University of Vancouver, University of BC, Simon Fraser, all great universities that are out there that deal with this kind of stuff all the time. And it'd be not only a great experience for students to go there that are in that line of work, but it's to get a good say in it and really contribute to the workshop conversations. And the other thing is there was no use of social media to announce this thing. A lot of the younger generation is on Facebook, on Google Plus, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and a number of other outlets. And I didn't see one announcement from there. And I mean, I could be wrong, but I didn't see it, and I'm sure a lot of other people didn't see it. And if Parks Canada were to engage the youth more, that would be the place that I would think would be the easiest to do. And I know Parks Canada and the Canadian government don't really do social media, but somebody should have put it on there and shared it as much as possible. So that's sort of what I think about this kind of thing is young people should get more involved. It's important for them to get more involved in these kind of situations because we will inherit this ocean, and we want to make sure it's a healthy ocean because it affects everything in our lives, from weather to uses to fish and everything like that. So we need to take care of these oceans, and we need to engage in the community. And actually, this story leads me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, how do you think we can engage the youth more into these processes, into these planning processes in marine protected areas or ocean planning in general? How do we get the youth involved in this kind of stuff so that they have their say? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, as usual, click the annotation below to get more videos, to get a link to our channel. Of course, subscribe button. Click the subscribe button to get emails to your inbox and onto your YouTube channel. Or your YouTube profile, and in the right hand corner there's a link to the last ocean news video. And as usual, of course, I need you to share these videos as much as possible. The purpose of this is to make people aware of what's happening in the ocean around the world every day. So I'm trying to share this as much as possible. I need your help. Please, let's get the word out there. I'm trying to educate people. Help me educate people. You can do it too. And share as much as possible with your family, your friends, your network, and let's get ocean awareness increased around the world. I hope you have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm Andrew Lewin, founder SpeakUpForTheBlue.com. Happy conservation.